So this is a video I've held off on making for a little bit, but feels like I should make. As I'm sure most of you know, Paul George made his exit from the LA Clippers in free agency back in the middle of the night on July 1st and signed with the Philadelphia 76ers. This is probably the biggest move of the offseason, as I think PG moves the needle more for the Sixers than say Klay Thompson does in Dallas, Derozan does in Sacramento, or Buddy Hield does in Golden State, but that's not here nor there. The real reason I wanted to talk about this is because I feel like the narrative around PG and the Sixers has gotten completely twisted. I want to talk about a few things today, including PG's ability to stay on the court, his contract, as well as his role on this Sixers team. Now, I want to talk about the on-the-court stuff first, then later on I want to break down some of the other things or things that people have said about the PG to the Sixers move that I don't agree with. In terms of the on-the-court stuff, I don't think this move alone makes the Sixers better than the Celtics, Bucks, or possibly even the Knicks, but I do think people are sleeping on how good this Sixers team can be. A lot of it comes down to Nick Nurse utilizing his players right and drawing up the best plays possible, and one of Nick Nurse's former players, Serge Ibaka, didn't even deny that or really push back on that when Kevin Durant said it straight to Ibaka's face back in 2019.
I love y'all team though, man. Y'all play hard as hell the whole playoffs, and I'm like, I just really rock with how y'all play. And y'all coach, like, he not gonna create the best X's and O's, but he know exactly what y'all need to do to win a possession.
Yeah.
Now, Ibaka's not going to sit there and argue, I know, but still. Nick Nurse as a coach is still so in my mind, but if I got to give him credit, I will say Nurse has improved his X's and O's a bit, as the stagger plays and the STS plays, aka the screener plays that he ran this past season were very good, and he needs to do more of that now this upcoming season. Reason being is I don't think Paul George's off-ball ability gets talked about highly enough. PG shot 45.3% on three-point shots with no dribbles, 59% on two-pointers with no dribbles, and 45.4% on catch-and-shoot threes this past regular season. In the 2024 playoffs, PG shot 43.5% on catch-and-shoot threes, 41.7% on no-dribble threes, and 100% on one-dribble two-pointers, despite only attempting 0.2 per game. He also shot 43% from three in both the past regular season and the 2024 playoffs on shots where he held the ball for less than 2 seconds. While this past season, a guy like Buddy Hield attempted less catch-and-shoot threes in Nick Nurse's system than PG did with the Clippers, so it makes sense that Buddy's frequency of shooting those shots in both the regular season and playoffs was much higher than PG's. I think the fact that there's literal game footage we can watch of good catch-and-shoot plays being run for Hield, or even a guy like Tobias Harris as well, who PG will seemingly replace as the Sixers' third option, is only a positive. They just need Nick Nurse to make sure that they use PG properly. I think the most intriguing thing will be seeing the starting lineup the Sixers decide to throw out there, and I really like the pickup of Caleb Martin as well. And with that, I assume the Sixers starting group will be Maxey, PG, Martin, Oubre, and Embiid. Caleb Martin's three-point shooting has continued to drop over the past 2 seasons compared to his first season with the Heat, but he shot a postseason career high of 44% from three in the 2024 playoffs, despite the fact that he had a negative 0.9 plus-minus rating this postseason. That does make sense with the fact that the Heat were banged up while they faced the Celtics, but if he can get back to that 2023 level of play that he had in the postseason, especially now that's the Sixers' fifth option, that lineup will be very scary. If we look at Tobias Harris's last postseason, he was really struggling as he came in with a negative 2.9 plus-minus rating, which of course is much worse than the negative 0.9 that Martin had this past postseason. If Martin can get back to that positive 2.3 plus-minus rating that he had in the 2023 postseason, that'll only make the difference between him and Tobias Harris seem more of like a night and day difference. And with PG replacing, say, Kyle Lauri, they'll get a huge bump up there, as in terms of, once again, the plus-minus ratings, the Sixers go from Lauri's 0.6 plus-minus rating this past postseason to the 3.2 plus-minus rating that PG had with the Clippers during their postseason. So replacing Lauri and Harris with PG and Martin might be a bigger deal than you realize or other people realize, and for that reason, I do believe the Sixers starting group is certainly not one to sleep on. You add in the fact that they'll also have guys like Kyle Lauri, Eric Gordon, and Andre Drummond, as well as young guys like Ricky Council, Jared McCain, and KJ Martin as well, and you have a damn good roster on paper. Speaking of KJ Martin though, He might not be on the team for long, as his name has been thrown in trade rumors as a sign-and-trade option for a guy like Dorian Finney-Smith, and if the Sixers can make that happen, their starting group will only be even harder for opposing teams to score against with the addition of Finney-Smith. The Sixers are also in a very good place in terms of draft picks that they have in their back pocket, and I promise you that they will make one more move at the very minimum to improve this roster, whether it's before the season starts or at the trade deadline in February. I'm not saying they're the best roster in the East, but they're a roster that you look at, and as you're going up and down, you get surprised by just how good they really are. Now, in terms of PG's contract, I've seen a bunch of people say that PG isn't worth the kind of money that the Sixers gave him, which was a 4-year, $212 million contract that increases annually each season and averages out at $52.8 million annually. I think while that might be a bit much for PG, with contracts continuing to increase and the amount of money that these players are getting, that definitely is a deal that does kind of make sense for the Sixers to give out, with this trying to maximize Joel Embiid's prime before that window closes. While giving Paul George $56 million during the 2027-28 season, when he'll be turning 38 that May, is a lot, this was a move the Sixers kind of needed to make after how their 2024 postseason ended. One thing that's also been wild to me is seeing Clippers fans compare PG to Kawhi or just throwing shade PG's way. Kawhi has definitely had the better career, no doubt about it. But if we're just talking about what both players accomplished while playing together, both men were 3-time All-Stars during their time playing together. And while Kawhi did make more All-NBA teams than PG did over those 5 seasons, PG was available more for the Clippers. Paul George played in more games than Kawhi Leonard did in each of the 5 seasons they played together, aside from the 2019-20 season, and George dealt with less injuries come playoff time. With Kawhi hurt, PG led the 2021 Clippers team to the Western Conference Finals. In 2022, Kawhi was hurt and Paul George caught COVID before the Clippers' second playing game and missed that game. In 2023, Paul George did miss the playoffs, but Kawhi did get hurt in that series himself against the Suns. And then in this past postseason, PG played in all 6 Clippers playoffs games, while Kawhi missed 4 of the 6 games. So while the deal can be looked at as too much money for a guy who only played in 263 of the 410 possible regular season games during his time with LA, he was more available than Kawhi and is coming off a season where he played in 74 games and remained healthy for the postseason. Even with that said though, yes, I do think health can be one thing that can bring this Sixers team down, as well as potentially Nick Nurse's play calling, like I said earlier. To give Nurse credit though, he did do a great job of maximizing his talent with that 2018-19 Raptors team. With Paul George playing well and staying healthy in a contract year though, you had to expect that one of the 30 teams in the league would pay up for him if the Clippers weren't willing to meet his demands, which of course they weren't. On paper, this Sixers team is great, and Daryl Morey has opportunities to only improve this roster further. The only problem is the game on the court is much different than what happens on paper, and we'll see if all the pieces can fall into place for this Sixers team. A lot of things have to go right for the Sixers to win it all, but this is probably the best Sixers roster we've seen in about 5 years now. I want to know in the comments though what you think about this 76ers team, their 2024 offseason, or anything relating to the topics we talked about today down below. Of course, if you enjoyed the video, then make sure to give it a like and subscribe if you're new to the channel. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I am out. Peace.